Hello and welcome to the PVSelect tutorial on how temperature affects string sizing. So for this tutorial we're going to use the PVSelect string sizing tool. When at all possible, please use the inverter manufacturer's proprietary string sizing tool. Fronius and SMA and some others have good online string sizing tools, and those are better to use. They will give you the most accurate information, and you can also print out the results that will be more specific to the array. SMA is rather in depth, you can print out the configuration of that and send that to the installer, and that will release you from liability. That you'll be presenting all the information that you were, all the assumptions you were making, all the information in the array to the installer. So for that reason, it's helpful to be able to do that. And also, just in general, those applications are going to be more accurate than the PVSelect tool, which is helpful for this purpose of simply being able to play around with the numbers and looking at how temperature affects panels, but it can be inaccurate. So when possible, please do not use it. There's some inverter manufacturers such as Chint, and this is indicative of the relative lack of development of Chint as an inverter manufacturer. They don't have their own string sizing tool, so you have to use something like the PVSelect. And for a while, I personally was speccing Chint inverters with this tool, and it went fine. There wasn't any problem that I was aware of, but definitely I noticed various inaccuracies throughout the process. That for instance, if I use the SMA inverter with the PVSelect, I would get different values than if I used the proprietary SMA. And I would assume the same would apply to Fronius and the other ones that have their own string sizing program. So please don't use the PVSelect tool when possible. When you have to, just try to be conservative and try to keep in mind that it's not the most accurate tool in the world. So anyway, going back to this. So let's stick with Fahrenheit. Let's go through the different values. Lowest ambient temperature. We generally actually recommend, PVSelect recommends that we use the historical low temperature, the record low for that site, which is going to be a fair amount lower than the lowest ambient temperature. This is because we want to be rather conservative, and if the temperature gets too low and the voltage gets too high, then you can damage the inverter. So if for instance we used one value, but a more accurate value would have been a lower temperature, then at some point, if the temperature does get low enough, then the voltage could exceed the 600 volt maximum of the inverter, and it could damage or destroy the inverter. So, and for that reason, we are not inclined to use the lowest ambient temperature, which is a higher value than the record low, which is what we recommend using. So, okay, so conversely, the highest ambient temperature, it's fine to use the highest ambient temperature or the highest average high, which is going to be a lower temperature than the record high, because low temperatures increase the voltage, but high temperatures decrease the voltage. And what happens if you have too low a voltage is you're not going to damage the inverter. You're just going to go below the minimum threshold for the inverter to be operating. In this case, it's 300 volts. So it's not going to damage the array. So it's less critical that we have. We don't need to have the record high, but the record low is recommended. Although I have worked with some inverter manufacturers that use the lowest ambient temperature. So it might not be a hard and fast rule, but in general, we like to be very conservative and try to eliminate any possibility for damage or destruction of the inverter. So okay, so going SMA is as good a manufacturer as any to use. The 10,000 TL is what's preset